Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me in the world of COVID. I really am happy to have you here today. I know we haven't seen much of each other since Super Bowl, except for in this virtual environment, but I really appreciate you joining, and I think it's going to be a funny, open discussion about what we've done and what we will do. So Mike, thanks for everything. Why don't you give us a little introduction to what's been going on with you guys? And then we'll jump to Kevin and see what he has to say.
Well, first of all, Dave, thank you for this opulent setting. When you first told me about this, you said it was going to be at a bar, and we were gonna hang out. I mean, he legitimately told me this, and that we were gonna do, we were actually gonna kind of recreate the Irish pub, and this is what he came up with. But he told me I could keep the virtual background. So thank you for that, Dave. That's really nice of you. I really needed this break from Zoom and video conference, so I appreciate it. But yeah, man, we've been learning it at both ends, and keeping bringing sports to the people. It's been fantastic. Kevin, I'm sure your experience has been exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, I was told like maybe renting out a sound stage or something to create the Irish pub or something, and instead this is what we got. But again, I do have a nice new background for all my Zoom meetings now, so
we don't spare any expense. So just so you know that, guys, we will always go the long mile for you. Well, so we have 15 minutes. So I want to just kind of jump into things, how life's been. I want to rewind the story a little bit and talk about the beginning of 2019. So about 2 years ago, specifically at SVG, we discussed the hurdles that you were thinking about going over as it pertains to the Women's World Cup production. There was a moment where we stepped aside and you said, hey, we're thinking about doing playback in Los Angeles. And I think that that really got the snowball rolling, and here we are today, worldwide pandemic. A lot of things have been flipped upside down. And you've been able to kind of recreate yourself and how you go about live production. So I would like to kind of hear a little bit about the story from your perspective on why that decision happened and what were the tools that you decided to use for that.
Well, I think the World Cup's a good place to start, and I'll definitely let Kevin do it because Kevin, you spent, how many days did you spend there in Paris?
Just a couple, just a couple of dinners out there, No, it was good. It was one of those things we talked about and trying to figure out what our best strategy for playback was going to be, knowing the different requirements we had, 3G, HDR, making sure that we would be able to handle that. And I think that when we settled on going with VIA, not just a legacy platform, but going with VIAs, which really opened us up for the future. It was the right move for the World Cup, and I think as we've seen now, it really opened our eyes and opened up the possibilities to a whole new suite of products.
Yeah, specifically the VIA platform, I guess, is what Kevin's after. But I guess that brings us to, we had built out some trailers for the Women's World Cup. We use virtual machines to host all of the different applications around asset management and workflow between post-production and all that kind of thing. But we started to get into a moment where Super Bowl was kind of upon us in the beginning of 2020. And we had new things coming out related to IP, specifically the XNet VIA. And I want to get your take on that and how that kind of how that developed and how that helped you be more successful, especially with on-air playback, sharing operators kind of content and things like that.
So go ahead, Kev.
Sorry about that. No, yeah,
I know you're just right over there, but sometimes I had too much to drink. Go ahead.
No, you hit the nail on the head. It really came down to, for us, wanting to create a network that was robust enough to handle the HDR. And I believe we created the largest XNet VIA system out there, between having every the pregame show, the the game truck, or both pregame trucks, the game truck, everything was all on XNet via, all with XTV. It made it a lot simpler of a implementation, and certainly provided the great show that we saw. Mike?
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting. You're talking about the World Cup on one side and then the Super Bowl on the other. So the World Cup, the goal was, can we do a fair amount of this stuff offsite so we don't have to send everybody to Europe? Nothing wrong with Europe. The labor laws is a little different there, made it a lot easier for us. And then flash forward to the Super Bowl, which, I mean, somehow is like this year. It was this year, which is amazing to think about. But we wanted to have the most pristine 1080p HDR experience because we were doing this massive show in 1080p HDR for the very first time. And the VIA turned out to be the solution that we could put in that did not distract from the workflow that everybody had worked on the entire time, even at that scale. So kind of two different fundamental goals, but the VIAs ended up being the tool in both cases.
So jump a little bit to a month later, let's say a month and a half, a pandemic strikes, and leagues after leagues started canceling all of their shows, and that affected all of us. It impacted the rights holders quite significantly. But I think that you guys found some ways around that towards the later parts of the season. So I'm curious to hear a little bit of the insights. I know that there's probably conversations that went on inside of Fox all the way to the highest level about what's going on to get sports back. So maybe a little bit of insight there, and how the HRP stuff that you had been building up to that point played in your favor.
So, I think that anybody watching knows that the pandemic has just accelerated some things that we were already working on, not only Fox, but obviously everybody else. And we were coming back on the air in, I think Kevin was late April, early May, right? With NASCAR. And we had at that point a very strict cap of people that we were allowed to have on site for safety reasons. And we needed to figure out how we were going to do it. And we thought, well, maybe we do it, kind of what we call HRP, or the Remy method, and sending everything back and having it produced at a central facility. Or let's think about how we can slice off certain parts of the production, still produce the show on site, but have a great many of the resources off site. And what Kevin and his team needed to do was to come up with something very quickly to allow replay and graphics, as it turned out, as well as some other things like, AD and stats, etc., back at the plant whilst still producing it in on site at the different tracks. And yes, try to do it in the most economical way possible. So Kevin found some real estate in the building. It was our old tape vault. It was being used at the time as swing space because the building was being densed up. Obviously with COVID, don't need to dense much up anymore. So we took over the tape vault and started what became our the very beginnings of our kind of production anywhere solution, right, Kevin?
Yeah, it really happened that quickly. We had a very short period of time to figure out what we needed to do, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't jeopardizing the show at all. We wanted to make sure that we were being efficient and economical about it. So the nice thing is we're not really moving that many video signals, and really nothing at broadcast quality. Everything that we're moving really is now just control. Control of servers, control of routers, and it's amazing how simple it is. And once you really start to get down to it.
So you flipped the model a little bit on its head, and you leveraged, I guess, IP more in a sense, and keeping the hardware on site and building out operations environments back at what you call the vault, right?
Exactly. Leverage IP for that control layer of things, but kept our tried to keep our vendors as whole as possible by using the machines that they already had on the truck instead of what we have.
Without spending gobs and gobs of money on shifting signals, full bandwidth signals back and forth. So what Kevin and the engineering team did was kind of this very elegant solution of low latency proxy video transport plus control signals for the EVSs and the graphics, and not only preserved what was in the truck, because let's be honest, a lot of directors and producers don't even go into the B unit anyway.
Mhm.
Whether those EVS operators were in the truck next door to them or whether they were 2,500 miles away, our goal was to make that somewhat seamless.
So we worked on, acquiring you. I think you guys own 10 LSM vias now, and some of those are being played with and used inside the vault, some of which are in HRP. What's the expectation and the use case for those new remotes? And we've been talking and playing with some of our artificial intelligence that's living in AWS. So maybe Kevin, you can talk a little bit about the project that we've worked on through, I guess, in its beginning stages at Super Bowl through World Series to now.
Yeah. So the extra motion AI really synthesized super motion is something that we've been uh, using. We started testing with it when you guys first brought it out to us at Super Bowl, and then through the World Series, and we've actually had it make air now, I think twice, 2 or 3 times at least, on NFL football, where we're able to create smooth super motion video from a camera that is not natively super motion through just a 1x camera. For us, we're using it on the pylon cameras because it's not somewhere where you're going to get a super motion camera anytime soon. And it really turns out a really compelling replay when you sit there and you look at it. So, it's something that we've been able to do using XT via and LSM via, which we've deployed now down in the vault, the new remote control, to leverage the workflow through AWS to clip it off on the server, send it off through the process, and have it returned to a server, a minute or so later, and have it as that first replay coming back from break.
So I guess, going back 2 years, did the investment you made make sense at the time? Are you happy with that investment? Is it growing? Do you feel like that was a good idea? Does management feel like that's a good idea at this point? I mean, being in the pandemic and everything, I guess that's the question that we're all trying to figure out, is if when we make investments, is it clear that they are good ones or are they bad ones?
Oh, David, I hate it when you fish for compliments. I really do. The Yes, David, it was a very good investment. Look, what we like about EVS, what we like about you guys, in that generally speaking, you have limitless expense accounts at places like these where they real is that it's been a relationship where things like extra motion is a good example where we kind of collectively had an idea. We saw in the back room for several years, we kind of pulled you kind of pushed to kind of get it out into the open, and we create solutions. And that's been something that we've done since, the 4K extraction days, since we've done for, things like Paris, things like Super Bowl. And I know that EVS is a global company, but we have always enjoyed helping being more than customers, but partners as well, and also being the benefit of your global partners also, and seeing what they do. So it's been a great investment for us in terms of the relationship and what we've gotten out of it. And I think that in times like these, where really I mean, technology rules right now. I mean, this is a great time to be in TV if you are a technology geek, because that's what's driving the train right now. Is all of the creative ways that we can leverage creative engineering and technology to do some really, really cool things. And the extra motion thing is a very cool, visible way of seeing what's possible. And I think there's a great many things, down the road that we'll be able to work on together as well. And we're looking forward to it.
So what's the future of live sports?
Well, this future of live sports, I think that based upon what we've seen, it's an extremely bright and uncertain future. It's good, but it's really good, but I don't think anybody can seriously tell you what the future of producing it is going to look like a year hence, 2 years hence, with all of the things that we're talking about, whether you're looking at, all the drinking buzzwords like AI and 5G and mech and all these things. I think it's just going to be evolving at a breakneck speed. So with sports, as they kind of come out and demand different production methods, I think the technology is either there or maybe even a little bit ahead of when we're going to be able to use it. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that as things start to come out, you can sit there and technology is great, but you need to have a use case for it. You need to be able to do it. To have something just for the sake of having it isn't good, especially now. Now we need to sit there and we need to use technology that has uses that help bring value to the production. And
Right.
technology for technology's sake isn't a good thing. You need to have a reason to do it.
Yeah. And I also want to stress also, I mean, we talk a lot about technology. I also want to stress the human factor is that what makes a company like EVS sing isn't like jerks like us. It's really the people who are using the technology and the people who've gotten used to it. And, I think that no matter how quickly technology advances and how differently we produce shows, really the human talent is what's behind good television and good sports broadcasting. And I think that human interface that EVS continues to nurture is so vital to what we're trying to achieve.
So just on that topic quickly, Mike, maybe Kevin or whoever wants to respond has more experience, but have you had operator feedback around the new LSM via remote, and is it positive? In which way? And are they looking forward to using it, or what's the feeling in the market?
I'll put it this way. When we got the first one installed, all of a sudden we were having operators saying, "Hey, how come he has it? Why don't I have it on my station yet?" So I would say, generally speaking, yeah, the feedback's been very good. Everyone is always anxious and looking to do it. We haven't had any brawls yet to work on the stations that have it, but I think come January we might be in that position.
And the IP connectivity solves a lot of the nuances that people are challenged by for many years doing remote production with the original RS-422 kind of connected device, the LSM.
Yeah, the IP connectivity really solves a lot of the issues that people would have with remoting something like this. Because when you're dealing with RS-422, it's always, I'll say it's a crapshoot. I mean, once you get it working, you get it working, and you've solved that problem. But I challenge anyone to sit there and say that they got it to work on the first try, and being able to sit there and have it as part of the IP layer, have it connected with everything else, so you can dial in latencies and everything. It just really enhances that user experience, and it makes it an easier problem to solve on the engineering side of things. Instead of having to sit there and steer multiple different control layers, you're basically able just to do one. Steer an IP stream to a target, and you're ready to go.
Well, that was kind of the cool thing. I mean, obviously we weren't using the new controller, but we were using this kind of witch's brew of KVM and RS-232 and high vision, and kind of put it all together. But I think that the all-in-one IP solution also does its best to preserve the user experience so that they can do their best work, hundreds or thousands of miles away, or even in the next truck, I suppose, but have it so that the front of the truck or the front of the studio, wherever they're doing it, isn't really aware that a whole lot different is going on than if they were just sitting in the tape room.
Okay, so to wrap up, I think a lot of people might be wanting to know what's next for you guys. So we're in December now. SVG Summit is ongoing, and I think people are curious to see what's up with Fox Sports. What's going to be the next thing for you two? What's on your plate, Kev? And Mike, feel free to tell us something or don't tell us something. You're good at that, so you can be a funny story. Or
I want to find out what Kevin's doing first. Kevin, what are you doing?
Well, we're getting ready for NASCAR. That's ramping up, and realistically, a month ahead of that NFC Championship. Trying to that's where usually in a non-Super Bowl year we would go ahead and have all of our bells and whistles across those two events. I'll let Mike tell you, what we might have in store for those. And we're sitting here now, and we're 2 years out from a World Cup. So trying to figure out how we're going to be working in Doha 2 years hence. Realistically, going back to the start of our conversation here, it's really what started the conversations around VIA. 2 years ago was a World Cup event. So, we have a lot of ideas, but we're just trying to get them all fleshed out. And honestly, since we're at SVG here, I think I'm ready for a pint at the Irish pub.
No kidding.
Make it a double. So, Mike, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we are, we're working hard on something called the Megalodon camera, which we'll have a little bit more information on in the future. I think that by the time you guys see this, we'll also be getting ready for postseason football. And like Kevin says, we are anticipating with great excitement and dread the next Men's World Cup, because not only will that be an amazing event, but we've gotten used to having Kevin here in the United States. Mm-hmm. And we'll miss him. We'll miss him greatly, but it's going to be a very, very interesting year. And the only other thing I'll say, David, is that it's just so important that everybody stays tight and communicates with each other in this industry, because so much of what we come up with is come up with collaboratively. So I'm looking forward to continuing those relationships and talking to everybody, hopefully not in this environment, but hopefully in the future, maybe in something that's a little bit more real.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, actually, because we're all in this kind of weird bubble, and we've started to learn how to use all these new devices and ways of communicating. And as much as, myself personally, I want to see it all go away, I don't necessarily think that the outcome is that bad when we have tools like this to collaborate and really become one when we're far away. So we've really leveraged that, I think. So I think that could stay, and that might be a positive thing in some respect. So,
yeah,
guys,
you still owe me some real drinks, pal. Don't even start that.
You have my credit card, so you can just. Guys, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. I'd love to see you virtually for many months. I can't wait to do it again in real life. So appreciate you both being here, and I know the chairman would really like to give you a thank you, Kevin. So appreciate it.
Thanks, David. Appreciate your friendship and your partnership, guys.
Take care, guys. Thanks, SVG.
Take care.